Magic 87.6. Hi, Andrew in the morning, talking to our tech guy, Mathew Dickerson. And this is interesting, Matt. Police are now using drones. Now, this is overseas to yell at people for being outside because even on the other side of the world, peoples aren't getting the message, are they?
Well, I'm not sure if people are getting the message anywhere, actually, Andrew, but it's really interesting because some of the people that are put at the greatest risk are people that we need to be out there working. So, for example, health workers, police, ambulance, some of those people on the front line, we really want them out there doing their job, but it is exposing them to potential infection from COVID-19. And so the police in Spain, and I'm sure it's happening in other countries as well, have taken this unique approach where they have some technology helping the police out, and the technology is in the form of drones, and they're sending drones out around the cities and just looking out, and if they see someone walking along the street, they'll go with the drone and talk to them and say, what are you doing outside? Why are you outside? Do you need to be outside? And basically in a pretty harsh tone, making sure that those people know that they should be inside, and they can have a two-way conversation with that drone. If they're allowed to be outside, they're left alone. If they're not, they're probably yelled at a bit more. They haven't armed the drones with lasers yet to start zapping the people as they walk along, but let's face it, that might not be too far away.
Geez, the way everyone's going, it could be the only way anyone gets the message. You there! Stop! Underlay! Inside! Now! It's hard to believe that we're getting to this stage where drones and stuff. I saw the guy who, did you see the one on Facebook as well, Matt, where the guy actually took his dog for a walk via a drone?
I did see that, yeah. And look, people are very creative, very innovative. I love the idea of them just coming up with all these different ideas to cope with COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. But look, to all the people who aren't dealing with COVID-19, please get on the picture because like I was telling you, I have relatives in Cyprus, and in Cyprus, if you want to go outside in Cyprus, you have to text a number with a legitimate excuse for you to actually get a license to go outside. And if you are spotted outside without a license, you get €150 on the spot fine. And that's
Yeah,
just
wow.
crazy.
Yeah, it is quite interesting. But again, what I like about that is that technology is being used to try and solve this problem. And that's the exciting part from my perspective. We've got a whole range of issues around the world with COVID-19. But me being a technology freak or buff, I really like the idea of how can we use technology to try and solve these issues that we've got across the world. And that there is an example, using a text message to try and solve issues.
Yeah, it is. But look, the message is stay home. If you want to use a drone to have a look at the world outside, go nuts. I don't have a problem with people flying drones. Just don't start yelling at people, please, because the social shaming on social media has already started, hasn't it, Matt? And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
There is no judge and jury in social media. It's all wrapped up in one. So you can't step too much out of line of what would be the norm, and social media dumps on you pretty quickly.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. All right, here we go. This is an interesting one because there's no sport anywhere in the world right now, but Supercars, Australian Supercars, they've found a really interesting way to kind of, I don't know, keep the sport in the limelight, so to speak.
Well, just keep people interested in the sport and keep the drivers and the teams interested. Obviously, when you've got drivers and pit crews and people in close association, they've said, well, that's not appropriate, so we've stopped the physical driving of supercars. But a lot of these drivers do practice on simulators, and some of them have actually grown up on electronic driving and get to the point where they're honing their skills on that, and some of them even get recognised for their skills in driving electronic means, and then they get into a real vehicle and see if they can transfer those skills. So the skills are very similar, and anyone that's driven any of the good simulators or even the good games know that it is very realistic now. The technology is so good and the processing power of the computer is so good that it is actually quite realistic. So the Super Series will continue on. It starts only in a couple of weeks' time, and the supercar drivers will be driving simulators. They'll be competing in esports. You'll be able to watch them and see how they go. And a few of the drivers have already started trash talking each other and talking about the younger drivers having a big advantage. So some of the older drivers are trying to paint themselves as the underdogs in this E-Series already. So I think the idea is great. And to give you an idea of the potential for this, Formula One, as you are well aware, places like the Australian Grand Prix were cancelled from the Formula One circuit, and Formula One has already held one event of an e-car series. Unfortunately, not all the drivers wanted to be a part of it, so some of the big names, like Lewis Hamilton, for example, he's probably paid, I don't know, $80 million a year, and that wasn't enough for him to go and sit on a computer and drive a computer. But most of the drivers participated. 350,000 people watched the event, watched the first event. Now, that's nothing like they would get when they're racing real cars, but it's not a bad starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. That would explain why I saw Mark Winterbottom on Facebook the other day, and he was selling an old simulator. And you could have bought Mark Winterbottom's old simulator for like $1,000, and people were losing their minds, Matt, over the fact that Frosty was selling this simulator, and there was like, there's all these people going, yeah, it's sold. I think people just wanted to go to Frosty's house. That's all.
It may be too.
But yeah, no, like you just blew me away. Sometimes, you sit here and you think, well, how does a race driver kind of train and learn the circuits? And you learn through race simulators.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's just the same as an airline pilot might do 100 landings and then try and work out one engine goes and how do I land this plane with one engine. All that simulator work is really important in our society for planes, but for race car drivers, it's a really good way to hone their skills. I'm not sure how many other sports might be able to take advantage of this. Obviously, lots of sports have shut down, but some of the basketball or the AFL or the NRL, some of those games on computers, to me, when I've played those, they're just not quite the same as playing the real game. So I'm not sure if some of those skills would transfer over. But again, I think there'd probably be some interest in a bunch of rugby league players trying to play NRL in electronic means rather than playing it on the real ground. I think there'd probably be a few people who'd watch that.
Yeah, if Ronaldo went and played FIFA 2020 online, people would lose their mind, I reckon.
I think you're right. And again, it's not quite the same as a racing car driver. The skills aren't quite as transferable, but I just think those big names doing something that may be slightly outside their comfort zone but still related to their sport, like you say with Ronaldo and soccer, then I think there'd be a market there for people to watch that. And people, let's face it, they're sitting at home at the moment and they're trying to work out what to watch and what to spend their time on.
Yeah, and this is going to be on Fox Sports and also KO, and the E-Series is going to start April 8 and run for about 20 weeks. So you're going to get a lot of race car drivers playing a lot of video games. So make sure you get that one on there. Scotty McLaughlin says he often practices on simulators between races, so it'd be interesting to see how they go. Can you imagine virtual Bathurst, Matt? Sitting there watching guys on simulators going around for 10 hours.
I think it'd be fantastic. And I think there'd be a few guys who would set up their virtual hill at home and have their real beers, not virtual beers, and watch the whole event just like they do on the hill. They probably wouldn't burn cars like they do on the hill at Bathurst. They probably wouldn't do that in their lounge room. But apart from that, I think they'd probably simulate the experience at home.
Yeah, I know, right? Darling, I'm going down Conrod. Can you just get me a drink? Thanks. Yeah.
At least Dick Johnson wouldn't have to worry about rocks being thrown onto the track on the simulator version.
I wonder if they put the ruse in the simulator as well.
A good point.
This is an interesting one. Of course, everyone's going to be on Netflix over the next couple of months, and there's a new feature that you probably didn't even know about.
Netflix Party. So this is an option on Netflix. You can just go onto your main menu and find the NP button. And the idea is that you might be sitting at home in isolation, I'm sitting at home in isolation, and we pick up the phone and we chat to each other and we work out some new Netflix series that we want to watch. Hey, I watched this great show the other day, Andrew, or a friend told me about it. Hey, do you want to watch it? Now, you might in the past have gone around to my place or your place and we sit around and we have a few Chardonnays while we sit back and watch a Netflix show or a Netflix series. But in this scenario, we do almost the same, but you watch it at your place, I watch it at my place in isolation, which is what we all should be at the moment, obviously. In isolation, we watch it, but we watch it together with a Netflix party, so it streams concurrently. Now, we could even do some extra things where we might do a FaceTime call or a video call and leave our phone sitting there with that call going so we can kind of enjoy the experience together. Or we might just have a bit of a break halfway through and ring up and say, oh, what did you think of that first episode? Wasn't that fantastic? But it just tries in some small way to keep us together while we're physically separated. And I think there are lots of companies, lots of organisations searching for ways at the moment to try and break down that social isolation while we've got physical isolation. And I like the idea.
I kind of got lost in the moment while you were describing that, Matt. I was like sitting there going, oh, it's such a nice program. And I pictured the virtual Shaadi, and then I'm sitting there going, and then I pictured the half an hour it's going to take for you and I to decide to watch the show. And then the 20 minutes of discussion of, do we really want to watch the show? And then you watch something totally different. I was taken to that moment. It was just...
And you're right, I know with our kids, when we sit around and, hey, we've got an hour to kill tonight, kids, what show do you want to watch? And you can never watch a 1 hour long show because it does take you half an hour to decide which show to watch, and you've only got half an hour left to actually watch the show then.
Yeah, absolutely. So another excuse, people. I love that feature on Netflix. Another excuse to stay the heck at home. That is the message right now. Stay the heck at home. We're all going to be binge watching something. I've already seen people going, I've been home for 6 days and I'm already sick of the Netflix. And but look, that is a really good kind of feature to kind of get reinvigorated again and kind of just chilling. It's a new way to chill.
Right.
And I think the idea is trying to keep people together. You can sit there and watch all your Netflix shows you like by yourself, but trying to keep that sort of togetherness, trying to keep people communicating, and the Netflix party idea is, again, that individual watching but having some sort of group interaction. I think it's a great idea to try and break down that, because it is tough to work out how you cope when so many of us interact with so many people on a normal day and suddenly you're sitting there by yourself.